my thoughts on whether it's easier to sell to professionals like attorneys, doctors, versus say like roofers and service contractors. Um, Prices. That's why. Okay, first of all, I always suggest if if you if you've done your research, and basically a really good way to do research and just kind of break it down is to take a look at for example, if you take a look at any kind of niche, and maybe you know something about that niche, or you know somebody in that niche, which is also really helpful. Um, because the more that you know about a niche and their business and the challenges that they have, the better you'll be able to price your service, and you'll know more the value of it. And if you don't know somebody like that, that's why I suggest starting out in 2 to 3 cities, usually like a East Coast and Mid Coast and maybe a West Coast. Just kind of spread it out a little bit across different states, so you can get a little bit different feel. Because in some niches, some things will slightly change per state. But that being said, good indicators that you come in with is you say, okay, let's for the keywords, what is Google charging for a pay per click? Okay, that's just an indicator. It's not always correct, and it's not always a good indicator either. It's just a part of the indicator. So we've got the AdWords, and then if we've got niches within Service Magic, if you want to go after some of those, then you'd look at what they're charging, and keep in mind that sheet there, that those are shared leads. So the like the 35 to 40 or $35 to $50, that's a shared lead, and they do offer exclusive leads, but they're 1.5 times more. And that's what they found in those niches. That's what the market's bearing. So those are pretty good indications there. But then, so you got Service Magic, you've got pay per click. But then the other thing that you've got, and this is the most important thing, is you need to do a little bit of research to find out how much does that particular person, on average, make per closed transaction. So like a roofer, for example, depending on the roof size, but on average, and I'm just guessing here, okay, I haven't actually done the research, but I'm just going to guess that it's probably somewhere around a new roof is probably, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, $20,000 depending on the roof, and there's obviously labor, and there are material costs. So we kind of want to figure out kind of what's the net on that, and if you do enough, the research on the internet, you can get a pretty good idea. And then you're kind of saying, okay, so if they're going to average from an average roofing job, let's say that they average, that they actually net $5,000, let's say. And again, I haven't done the research there. And then you kind of compare that to Google's pay per click, and maybe it'll turn out to be $4.28 or something like that. And that's an example of being way off basis. And the reason is that not a lot of roofers are out there competing and doing pay per click. They're just not that sophisticated of a group of people. Nothing against roofers. That's just they're into roofs. They're not marketers. So Google's numbers are based on what the market will bear. So if more roofers started coming in and doing pay per click, then they could slowly start driving the price up, and that's how their systems work. So that's an example of where a roofer or the niche is getting a lot, a substantial amount, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 net per closed transaction, versus you look at the pay per click, and the numbers might look low, and that may initially scare you off. Don't you want to look also what they're getting, total revenue and net from a closed client, and then you want to think about it in terms of this, and it's not always the same, but this is a pretty good rough guideline. So you come in And you'd say, okay, let's just use the roofer example. What if I brought the roofer um, 10 live phone calls, and out of those 10 live phone calls are people that were looking for, get a bid on a roof. And that's not going to be a quick close, right? There's going to be some questions, and then they're going to have to come out and take, give them a bid and take measurements and all that kind of stuff. So what happens there is that you say, okay, if I gave you 10 people who were looking for roofs, what percentage of those actually turn into a client on average? And let's just say that they said that the average was 3. So they basically had a 30% closing ratio. It's probably going to be less than that. So let me just do 20, because it's kind of a higher end type deal. But say he's like 20. I don't know. I mean, you want to ask the roofers and find out. And there's going to be some kind of medium average out there, right? Some are going to be really good. They're like, they're going to be hot dogs. They're going to be able to close half of them. And some are not that good on it, because that's just as part of who they are. And it's just an area of their business that they need to work on. But, just for example, if I charge you $50 per phone call and I give you 10 of them, that's going to cost $500. But you told me you'd be able to close 2 on average out of there. So, maybe it's your net profit after all expenses and everything. Maybe it's just like $3,500. I don't know. So you get 2 of those. So that's $7,000. So the real kind of simple equation there is, you handed me $500 because I delivered you 10 phone calls at $50 a piece, and you ended up getting 2 jobs. And so you handed me $500 and I handed you back, in this example, I'm just saying $7,000. That's a good relationship. That's really good. And so those are the things that you do when you're kind of trying to price it out. There are other niches that are usually when you get in more competitive niches, like if you get really niche, like in the any type of law or attorney or bankruptcy type of things, divorces, these kind of niches, they're more sophisticated. They're college graduates, and they tend to be more sophisticated with their advertising, and they tend to go for part of the advertising as AdWords. So it really drives the price up. And DOI attorney and some of these others it's commonplace to be between $75 and $100 per click. That seems pretty crazy. You could have 10 people click on your site, and you owe $1,000 in advertising, and they may never call. But you're offering a live phone call, and it's incredibly more valuable than a click. And the other thing to kind of look at and think about when you're looking at prices is that if you just charge as straight, there is no qualifying. Whatever call comes in, you're going to get charged for it. Period. If you're going to go for that model, which you can do certainly, you're going to charge a little bit less, but it's a straightforward model. And you're really comparing yourself to a pay-per-click, where it's just like pay-per-click, but we know that we're talking about a live call versus a click. Okay. And on pay-per-click, some people will click on it accidentally. Some people will click on it and leave in 2 seconds, just like some people will call and go, oh, okay, now I'm not really interested, and hang up. And you can position yourself and your services as superior to a click. It's a live lead, and you can charge something close or a little bit above what pay-per-click is charging. Although some markets know that it's not going to be a direct comparison, like a roofer is. I haven't looked, but I'm going to guess that that's probably what it is. A roofer is probably around $4 or $5 or $6 or $7 per click, where their job is going to be pretty substantial on that. So, and my thoughts on whether it's easier to sell to professionals like attorneys, doctors versus roofers. It's more service type is easier to get a hold of. because it's usually when you call their place of business, it's usually their cell phone, and so you're able to talk with the decision maker right away. So in that sense, it's easier on the versus a professional. There's usually going to be some kind of gatekeepers there. There's no reason why you can't get through them. It's actually very easy to get through, especially if you say, we've been sending you free leads on here. Would you like to continue to receive them? Or we have free leads, people calling us right now, and we just need a place to forward them, and we would like to know if you'd like to try it out for a week for free. You get free phone calls. They're coming in. They're looking specifically for your services. Pretty darn easy to get through a gatekeeper with something like that. And you're not, and that's exactly what you're offering. So you're not like a bait and switch type deal. That's what you are offering. And that's your kind of warm intro into doing business and building a relationship with the professional. So now once you get through to them and you're talking to the decision makers, just on average, and these are kind of broad strokes, but a professional normally they're a little bit sharper, and so they, and particularly if they already do like pay-per-click and they do current advertising and they have a budget, in that sense, they're going to see the value, the unique value that you're offering. Whereas some of the service agents, some of the service people that are like not doing service magic, because not every service industry out there, like drywallers and people who do asphalt and kitchen remodelers, obviously not all of them do service magic, and they might be less sophisticated, so that you might have to educate them just a little bit more, and they may not initially see the value in it. And those are broad strokes, but both professionals and regulars have their pluses and minuses. So, alrighty. So, good question with that. Could you discuss how you initially set up business for LLCs, sole proprietorship, etc.? How do you designate your principal business? What code for tax purposes? Do you set up all your businesses under one umbrella? For instance, are the PPC businesses and informational products all under one umbrella? Don't mean to complicate things here, but I want to get set the best that I can. Okay, good. I would, that's a great question, by the way, and I just want to preface that I'm not an attorney. I'm not a licensed CPA. I'm not a tax person. So I'm just sharing with you some of the things I've done, but you'd want to go out and talk with your own professional about this. I set up. I do LLCs, not sole proprietorship. I do LLCs. I don't do corporations. S corporations are those. I just do a limited liability corporation. This is the United States, and we have several of them, and they're for different aspects of the business. So yeah, I've got some just for particular niches, and then I've got some for just the IM business. I've got some just for Callzoo. So I've divided those up, and the reason that I did that is just for layers of protection. And their LLCs are really inexpensive to do, especially if you do them yourself. You just like $50. And then I set up separate business accounts with each one of those.